So Ram, every Indian has some version of the Jallianwala Bagh Massacre in their history books, in popular culture. हम सब ने कुछ पढ़ा है, कुछ देखा है. That has been, everybody may not know exactly what happened, but everybody has some impression of what happened. Why did you feel that there was still
another story
about this horrific massacre? Yeah. What was the untold story?
So I come from advertising, so there is a positioning statement that we have, which is on the trailer mein hai, you know about the massacre, but you don't know about the conspiracy. So हमने पहले ही बोल दिया है, and hopefully ये आपके लिए hook होगा कि आप जब देखेंगे तो आपको ये कहानी पता है कि जनरल डायर वहाँ जलियांवाला बाग गए, उन्होंने मैसेकर किया, हत्याकांड किया, कांड किया, लेकिन ये आपको नहीं पता है कि जो हुआ वो जनरल डायर सिर्फ रिस्पॉन्सिबल थे या was it a pre-planned massacre to teach us a lesson? And even in the show, in the first 10 minutes, I tell you that it's a sazish. It's a conspiracy.
So this wasn't the British failing to control a crowd of Indian protesters.
There was no protest that day. If you look at Google, if you look at any research that you're looking at, there was no protest actually. And so the series actually tells you very clearly in a historical manner actually, though it's inspired by real events, but that real events is that 2 days, 3 days before, क्या हुआ, क्यों जलियांवाला बाग क्यों हुआ, वो हमको नहीं पता. And why was it a setup? And why was Dyer in a way what they call as a fall guy?
You mean he wasn't the only one?
He was not.
Basically, the moment you say it was a conspiracy, there was a plan and there were other people.
It was a master plan.
Before we come to what that master plan was and who was the architect of that master plan, what's very interesting is, as I was driving here to come and meet you, I was reading a little bit about the Hunter Commission. Now, the Hunter Commission was set up by the British to investigate the Jallianwala Bagh Massacre. But guess what? I mean, you don't have to guess, but for our audience, it's important to know, it was actually called the Disorders Inquiry Commission.
The Punjab Disorders Inquiry Commission.
Making it seem like, bhai, wo chota-mota kuch hua tha, uski inquiry kar lete hain, right? Not that it was the massacre that we know it now to be. अब आप ये बताइए कि जब आप कहते हैं कि ये कंस्पिरेसी है, ये एक मास्टर प्लान थी, ये एक एक्सीडेंट नहीं था, ये बिल्कुल it was planned. A mass killing of Indians was planned by the British.
Yes. So ये क्या हुआ कि 6 महीने के बाद, हत्याकांड के 6 महीने के बाद, ब्रिटिश पार्लियामेंट में बहुत ह्यू एंड क्राई हुआ. Okay, कि we should investigate why this happened, because a lot of Indians were up in protest about कि this has happened to us and nobody's even investigated this. What I'm saying, which may be historically true or not, is that commission was a whitewash in more ways, that no pun intended, which is that ये जो commission जो बनाई गई कि भाई क्या हुआ, eventually ये आप जो paper जो पढ़ेंगे, अभी in the archives there are I think 400 to 440 pages of the testimony of the people. I think the commission went over a month and a half, 2 months, and Dyer was also called in front of the commission to कि भाई ये आपने किया, वो क्या था. At the end of that commission, that report says that it was Dyer's fault. It can't be Dyer's fault alone, right? It's not as if he went there and he said, y'all now I'm going to shoot you all.
So who was the architect of this conspiracy?
So we are saying that it was the entire British government. It was an entire British Raj. It was the empire.
Who wanted
to teach us a lesson because they were worried about 1857 happening again. So that's what we are saying. And if you therefore look at, I'm told right now that there is 1 lot of papers that is already in the public domain, but there are 2 lots of papers that have not been come into the public domain, is what I had read somewhere. And we've done a lot of reading and it's all there. Even if you look at a character whose name is Hansraj, which is there in episode 1, if you look up Hansraj on Google, and that's what I'm expecting people to do, that they will actually begin to learn what actually happened, which is there, but we've not been told it.
The protagonist of The Waking of a Nation is actually on this inquiry commission. Yes. He's a member of the inquiry commission. Yes. He's an Indian who's a member of the inquiry commission. And the inquiry commission is historically, a whitewash.
Well, that's what we are saying.
That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
And this is looking at this massacre, this pre-planned massacre by the British Raj through the eyes of this young man,
Yes.
who now is in a morally impossible situation.
Well, the thing is that first, just to go to what really happened, there were 5 white men and there were 3 Indians who were on
That's
the
right.
commission. We have taken the liberty, because it is inspired by true events. I'm not saying that this is actually based on that exactly. But what we've done is we've taken our own character, whose name is Kantilal Sani, and his journey, उसको लगता है कि जो अंग्रेज जो है ना वो दिल के भी गोरे हैं और वो सूट पहनता है. तो उसकी जर्नी जो है वो एक सूटेड बूटेड आदमी से धोती तक वो आता है. So he becomes somebody who becomes Indian. And
It's a little
so,
bit like Gandhi.
It's actually, in a way, it is. So उसको भी एक हादसा होती है, which makes him realize that what really is the truth. And so this is an emotional story about 4 friends. He's one of those people. And he believes that the commission is here to actually give you the real facts and truth. And then as he goes through it, he realizes that no, it actually isn't. In fact, one of the things we talk about is that during the time that the commission was happening, there was also the Paris Peace Treaty which was happening, which is after what they now call as World War I, but tabhi to the Great War tha, because wahan tak there was no World War II at that time.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of Indians who had actually gone and fought for the British. So what we are saying is that because the British were worried about their image in the world, because at that time they were having the Paris Peace Treaty against Germany in Paris.
Yeah.
So we are saying that they did the commission to actually again make the world feel that they were gentlemen, that they were gentlemanly. And so the show is actually about colonization. It's about the white man's burden, which is a whole big thing. Ke wo log humko aake, how are we going to be civilized? They civilized us. And I am yet troubled by the idea कि उनको लगा कि हम कांटे छुरी से खाएंगे और हाथ से नहीं खाएंगे. हम हाथ से खाते तो हम नेटिव सैवेजेस है. अगर कांटा छुरी से आप खाएंगे तो you're civilized.
So your lens
Yes.
is actually a lens on racism, on uncovering and peeling off
Yes.
this so-called civilized white world, and showing actually the sort of the depravity behind that power-driven, but also racism-driven.
Yes, because
Wasn't just about power.
No, it wasn't about power. I think that they were here to actually, and just to give you a little personal story for 2 minutes, which is, so the first time that I was going to London with my mother, and we were in economy class, and there was 3 seats and 4 seats and 3 seats. And my mother was on that side, I was on this side. And then my mother said, okay, come in after the plane had taken off, and she said, come and meet me. So I went aage, and the kitchen galley, I mean, I didn't know it was called a galley at that time, but the curtain band tha. So I felt bad, okay, oh shit, I can't go through. I mean, I felt bad that I couldn't go through. So there was that front row, pe thoda jagah rehta hai, where, the babies are kept. So there was a white man there. So I said, excuse me, can I just go across? I want to go and meet my mother. And he said to me, he looks at me and he says, sit down, you brown bastard.
No.
And I went and sat down.
No, but these were the words.
These were the words.
And you didn't complain, and you went and sat down.
And I was shaking and shivering, and I could not believe.
Which was the airline?
So it was British Airways. Okay. So the
Astonishing.
show, I think that all of us have got humiliated.
Yeah.
And some self-respect has been even in your life, you would have found this in everybody's life, that we've all gone through some experience about this humiliation. And it has taken me many years to reply, and you can reply in many ways. You can reply through violence, you can reply through, at that moment you could have reacted. It depends on your character. My character was such that I went and sat down, and even now when I remember it, I actually don't know why I did that. But then many years later, now I'm making a series about that incident in my life.
There is a collective sort of colonization. But here's my question to you. This colonization, and we'll come back to Jallianwala Bagh, but this colonization we are still grappling with. We are still grappling. मैं आपसे जिस भाषा में बात कर रही हूँ, वो कहा जा सकता है कि वो अंग्रेजी भाषा ही एक illustration है colonization की. But on the other hand, you don't want to become, you don't want that sort of neo-nativism either. You don't want to necessarily go around changing every road ka naam or building ka naam, right? But so many of us, of a certain generation, grew up deracinated, grew up rootless, अपनी भाषा नहीं मालूम थी, अपनी scripts नहीं मालूम थी, अपनी कहानियाँ नहीं मालूम थी.
जी.
और हमें एक इल्यूजन था कि ये प्रोग्रेसिव है. दूसरी तरफ हमें वो भी नहीं बनना कि भाई हम बिल्कुल ही हम ग्लोबल भी होना चाहते हैं, लोकल भी होना चाहते हैं. पर इस कॉलोनाइजेशन का हमारी कलेक्टिव साइकी पे क्या असर पड़ा?
So, as somebody who's practicing cinema and putting it out there, I'm trying to see how I can be rooted, or how do I tell stories that are culturally, what I call as culturally piggybacking. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
कि इसमें हमारे शो में हमने कबीर भी यूज किया है. तो 4 गाने हैं जो कबीर के हैं. And in my own way, I'm trying to come back to my own roots while I'm speaking in English just now. But I'm wearing Oriental collar. Okay.
But I think there's also poetic justice in using English to get back at the British.
Okay, that's a good way to put it. But I'll tell you the 12 actors.
And I mean, someone who does it very well, for example, is Shashi Tharoor, who uses absolutely clipped English to get back at the British, you know.
So we got 12 English actors. We flew them down from London.
Yeah.
When they got to know about the Jallianwala Bagh Massacre, which they had not been taught, because there is a...
You do know that colonialism, the entire period of British Raj in India is not taught in textbooks in the United Kingdom.
It's called, what is it? The institutionalization of education, right?
Yeah.
But they have wiped this out.
Yeah.
So when we spoke to those 12 British actors, and they're all fantastic, okay, they've been very good, and when they came down saying, we want to speak about this because we want to tell the future generation. So I think that when they say that history is written by the winner, by the victors, which was a line written by Churchill, which is what I then discovered, of course. So this history that we have been taught was not written by us. And what we are trying to do now is to just put a different lens on it, which is not to say that, that is history or not, what is history. In fact, I'm fascinated by the idea that in bookshops now you have historical fiction, okay, and people are buying historical fiction. But yes, my show is not really, I'm not saying in any way that it is, sort of history. I'm saying that, look, it's inspired by what happened, because of what happened to me, and because I want to speak about what has happened to this nation and how India became India.
Yeah, and you call it the waking of a nation. Now, typically we associate
March 7th
streaming on 7th March on Sony Live. Yes, and I hope a lot of people watch it.
Thank you. No.
Question is, the waking of a nation is a very interesting framing, because normally 1857 is the first war of independence.
Yes,
but you're actually saying
which they taught us by saying it was a mutiny, and then it became a rebellion. That itself is a rewriting of history.
That's right. Because जब मैं स्कूल में थी, तो उसको 1857 mutiny कहा कहते थे.
The Great Indian Mutiny.
Correct. और अब भी we call it the first war of independence.
Exactly.
So the waking of a nation, triggered by this massacre at Jallianwala Bagh, where you say General Dyer was just one character, and he was executing, in your opinion and research, somebody else's orders.
Yes. And
how high do those orders go according to you?
So 2 things. One, if the series works, and a lot of you should see it, I hope you'll see it, then I do want to make The Waking of a Nation 1857.
Right.
I do want to continue making how India became India.
Yeah.
Because even after 1857, there was a commission, because the British were very good about these things. They came in and they colonized us by being, we thought, gentlemen. Okay. And so in the series, to come back to your question, in the series that we're doing, The Waking of a Nation, March 7th on Sony Live, what we're saying is that there is Lieutenant Governor Michael O'Dwyer, who was eventually shot by Udham Singh.
That's right.
Because he was the governor of Punjab at that time. So he represented the British Raj. And so he also becomes, and in the climax that you see his views on what he considers how we can't rule ourselves, what he considers and what they considered at that time. So he becomes the mouthpiece or the voice of the situation or the conversation of that time, which perhaps is some of the conversation that we know or don't know about.
Now, before I ask you the one thing you were startled by in your discovery of, or reimagining or relooking, not imagining, relooking at Jallianwala Bagh.
In a way, it is. I mean, the massacre.
It's a retelling of the story. Of not the story, but of the massacre, of the horror.
I also don't show the massacre.
Yeah.
Okay, in the show, I show the people, the soldiers coming in, but I do not show. I want to treat the people with dignity, with respect, and I want to treat that event that happened in a way in which. And that's why we have, like, you tied the thread to in memory of the people who lost their lives. And I want to treat that with respect, so I didn't show that. But
do you feel it's an undertold, when I was tying the thread,
right,
I thought, why don't we have this memorialization? Why don't we have it as a nation, right? We should.
No, there is no.
No, I know that, I'm Punjabi, my family was in Amritsar, I have been many days to Jallianwala Bagh, but it's become a sort of tourist spot. And it's fine, that's living history.
Yeah.
But I do feel that there should be a national memorialization,
right,
as opposed to a local memorialization.
Well, there are various ways in keeping it alive, and then there are various initiatives that you do to keep it alive. Then what becomes of those initiatives and the way that it's treated is not really in anybody's control. My way of making a memorial
is to make this series. Talking about technique for just a moment, lots of single takes, including a 90-minute single take. I'm trying to visualize this. I studied some film production.
First
how does a 90-minute single take work?
No, so first I have 4 female DOPs who are part of this show.
Yeah.
And hats off to them. Aarya and Neerja are the 2 main DOPs. But I don't work like just now. What we are doing is that we have a 2-camera setup.
Yes.
And we have lights.
Yes.
Okay. And we're still having an informal conversation.
Yeah.
But normally in a movie, what happens is that there is some crane, there is some trolley, and you're stuck between action and cut. And what I'm trying to do is to try and get to a documentary kind of truth, where the actor is not aware of where the camera is.
Right.
And so I don't say action, I don't say cut, I don't use lights. From Neerja onwards, there are no film lights. Okay, I don't light.
You don't light at all?
At all. Okay. And I therefore use 3 or 4 cameras, and I treat it in a way in which I do what I call before and after cut also, so that it feels like this. You have come in your character, I have come in mine. We're having a conversation. We know what we're meant to be conversing about, but it's free flowing. And that's what I try and arrive at, so that there is a certain truth to the
or a rawness to it.
Exactly. So therefore, when you see the same actor in what I do versus what somebody else is doing, that same actor is handcuffed by the industrial processes of filmmaking.
Got it.
And I want to release my actor because I'm in service of my actor. Without my actor, I'm nobody. And therefore, I respect my actor hugely, and I will not put cinema by saying, this mark, you have to go here, and the focus, I will not do any of this. Okay, so I'd rather keep it so that it's more the landscape of the human face.
That's fascinating. But let me come back in the end to what
by the way, I call it System 360. That means you can go wherever you want.
Right.
The actor is now free. There are no rehearsals. The actor is free. If they're in character, you can do whatever you want.
And the cameras just have to follow the actor.
Exactly. So the commission has been shot with 4 cameras. And I respect my 150, they call them junior artists. To me, they're not junior artists. They call them background. That's not my background. This is my foreground. Okay.
Yeah.
So those 150 people, I workshop them. They begin to become part of the truth of what you're capturing. And so sometimes what will happen is while I'm shooting, I did live editing while I was shooting. Okay. But sometimes what happens is those people who are part of the crowd in the commission, if they feel that Kanti said a word wrong, okay, suddenly they would be there actually whispering to him, saying, "Ye pronunciation, ye hai." And so I feel very happy when the people who are in front of my camera are giving me all of this, because I treat them with that respect. I know everybody's names, so I don't say, "Hey, bhai log, hey, tum," I don't say any. I call them by their names. So there is an entire system that I have formulated, which is, I know it's a little technical, I'm sorry, I don't mean to bore people or pakao them with filmmaking gyan, but basically I'm so fascinated by a process of trying to how to get to truth.
Yeah. So talking about truth in the end, what is the one truth that you uncovered in your research for The Waking of a Nation that you think every Indian must know about this massacre?
Eat with your hands.
Really? As a metaphor for?
As a metaphor for who we are. Because I think that we've been taught fork and knife from the time that we were in schools, because we were taught that is the way to eat. And I have to say, use a jet spray.
I'm glad.
That's reverse colonization.
Yes, I am glad you can retain your sense of humor and irony. But it's an important, I would say, despite the fact that we all know something about Jallianwala Bagh, it remains an incompletely told account of history. I don't mean in my sense of humor or my lightness of tone or my informality in any way to make whatever happen, because it is a tragedy. I like tragedies, actually, and I've been making movies, or whether Neerja or Aarya, or tragedies, because I feel people have lost catharsis. Yeah. Because there is so much shocking things happening around us that we've lost how to cry. Yeah. And that's the other reason that I want to use the ras of एक जो भयानक जो चीज जो हुई, वो एक दिल में sort of touch होना चाहिए, where you feel that you can let out everything that you have gone through in your life, including humiliation and whatever that you felt. These are ways in which cinema and series can actually cleanse you. Ram Madhvani, The Waking of a Nation, streaming on the 7th of March on Sony Live.
Thank you so much. Okay. We can't shake hands, we have to say namaste.
No, we can do both.
We can do both.
Exactly.
Exactly. Okay. No, thank you. It's been wonderful. Thank you so much.